From the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird, this is the Witching Hours, and we are ready to take off in the blink of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am one half of your host, Dinah the Frost, and joining me as always is Medium Jenny Lee. How are you doing, Medium Jenny Lee?
I'm doing okay.
We're hanging in there.
Yes.
Hanging in there. It's been a long day.
Burnt to a crisp. We are excited to do Witching Hours.
Crispity crisp.
And have Ragnar here with us. So.
Yes, I know a lot of you were excited for this one. It's one of the things that we were talking about. But before we get into that, let's get into this week's news. So the first thing I have, the first thing that I have is an article that I saw, headline: Ouija board blamed for sending 28 schoolgirls to the hospital in Colombia. A bizarre incident at a school in Colombia saw a staggering 28 girls require hospitalization, and some parents contend that a Ouija board is to blame. The weird case reportedly occurred late last month in the town of Galeras, when the students suddenly began inexplicably fainting and exhibiting various symptoms related to anxiety. The curious condition seemingly swept through the school and ultimately led to the afflicted girls being taken to the hospital for treatment and searched for answers as to what could have caused the unsettling event. An unlikely suspect emerged as several parents suggested that the girls had fallen ill after playing with the Ouija board. So that's what we have there.
Said, well, they should have said bye.
Yes, you always have to say, make sure you say bye.
Oh, goodness.
So, yeah, strangely enough, this is not the first time that a Ouija board has been blamed for causing a Colombian school children to become sick, as an eerily similar case occurred this past November when nearly a dozen students collapsed after they were said to have played with the infamous device. You know, we talk a lot about
Frosty, hold on a second. Oh, never mind.
I got it, yeah.
Okay.
We talk a lot about the Ouija board in these circles when we're talking about weird stuff. And there's a lot of people who are into a lot of weird things who are still very particular about their use of the Ouija board and don't like to use it. Some people really like to use it. Out of all the weird stuff we talk about and all the weird stuff we do and all the medium streams and all the channeling and all the different stuff that we've gotten involved in, the Ouija board, I still feel like, is a hot topic in terms of okay to use. Is it not okay to use? Is it real? Is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let us know. What do you guys think about the Ouija board? Second news article today was scientists unveil corridor discovered in Great Pyramid of Giza using cosmic rays. So you guys might have seen this story. I saw it quite a bit this week. A once hidden corridor has been identified inside the Great Pyramid of Giza.
You mean a room, not a coin.
A corridor.
Oh, corridor.
A corridor.
Not a corridor.
I've talked a lot today. Just so
a quarter too.
I've talked a lot today.
How is there a quarter in there? That's weird.
Yeah, well,
time travel.
That would be a bigger story. That would probably be a bigger story. But no, it's a corridor.
Corridor. Gotcha.
Yeah. A corridor has been identified inside the Great Pyramid of Giza after a year-long project using modern technology to reveal the secrets inside the last of the seven wonders of the ancient world that is still standing. An international research team used an imaging method based on cosmic rays to analyze a cavity behind the pyramid's north face that was discovered in 2016. Their findings were announced at a news conference with Egyptian officials Thursday outside the 456-foot pyramid. This discovery, in my opinion, is the most important discovery of the 21st century. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former antiquities minister, told NBC News on Thursday, and he's definitely someone who's been at the center of a lot of pyramids. So
I know I get excited, but I find a hallway.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like
hallway.
It's anything to do with the pyramids is always
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if it'll ever end.
People. Yeah.
I don't know if people are ever going to find what they're looking for or what they think is there.
Mm-hmm.
But every time there's a new mystery, it just opens Pandora's box on what else could be there.
Like quarters.
Yeah. Silver dollars, maybe next time.
There's a Pac-Man machine a little further down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why there's a quarter there. Somebody dropped it on the way.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Keisha. Zahi Hawass, that's like someone who, there's a lot of issues that go on there, and Egypt's government and how that works. But on the other side, there's a whole conversation maybe that we could have on the show one day about that. But,
yeah.
And lastly, the last news article for tonight is Pentagon UFO chief says alien mothership could be in our solar system.
Yeah, what the world was that? Because I saw it pop up in the Discord, and I was like, I didn't have time to look at it.
Yeah, our friend posted it in the Witching Hours Discord channel, which has been happening often when I have a news article ready to go and people start talking about it a couple of days ahead of time. And so that was one of those things. So I don't want to talk about it too much in Discord yet.
Yeah.
But the article states there is a possibility that extraterrestrial motherships and smaller probes may be visiting planets in our solar system. The head of the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Research Office noted in a report draft shared Tuesday. Artificial and interstellar object could potentially be a parent craft that releases many small probes during its close passage to Earth, an operational construct not too dissimilar from NASA missions. Sean Kirkpatrick, director of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, wrote in a research report co-authored by Abraham Loeb, chairman of Harvard University's Astronomy Department. So essentially, they also bring in this Oumuamua object. Are we familiar with that, Oumuamua? This object that they think is interstellar. So we had this object in the solar system that isn't from our solar system, that was traveling at weird speeds, and it actually appeared to slow down. So there are some that think that it could have been extraterrestrial. These are scientists from Harvard that said that. And so I guess here isn't necessarily a reporting of a craft they think, but just a hypothesis on the fact that there could be one in our solar system, and there's no way for us to really know. But I felt like, I don't know, this stuff has been interesting with all this stuff being shot down lately, and then these reports coming out from academia talking about the possibility of spacecraft coming into our solar system. I almost feel like they're trying to divert attention. A lot of this seems to be, I don't know. It's an interesting story.
Too. Yeah.
It's an interesting story, but it really does
make me
think
want us to know about.
There's something going on that they don't want us to know. And
Ragnar,
that doesn't necessarily have to be aliens.
You wanted to say something about this. What did you want to say about it?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, anything that didn't come from Earth is definitely extraterrestrial.
For sure.
I picked up on that thing that said, they think it might be extra. Yeah, of course it's extraterrestrial. It sure is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Is it being piloted by something intelligent? Is a completely different question.
Very true.
And is the gravity of one planet or another, or the pull of a large asteroid causing things to slow down as opposed to it being intelligently controlled? We don't know that. Mm-hmm. And if they're technologically advanced to get to travel light years of time in what I assume aren't Earth years, yes,
Yeah.
they probably
Mhm.
would make it pretty difficult for us to find them if they don't want to be found.
Exactly. That's what we were talking about with this whole shooting
Yeah.
stuff down. Like, we're going to shoot down an alien UFO? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just
We can't get anything together. How are we going to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. If some kind of civilization has the ability to travel light years across from however long of a distance, galactic, intergalactic, whatever that ends up being, I doubt that we're going to be able to, well, we shut it down. It's fine. Like, no, that's
Yeah.
not,
But can I devil's advocate that a little
yeah,
bit?
you can. Yeah,
Of course.
Because I've actually thought about this a lot, right? This thought process that if something's advanced enough to get here, then it's likely so advanced that you couldn't do anything to hurt it. Well, if this is a species of something that's out there that doesn't anticipate violence,
That's true.
because they've never experienced violence, and they come here going, "Hey, what's this? Oh, what are they doing?" And now their ship's exploded,
Mhm.
and their little gray alien body is now decomposing on the ground,
Yeah.
right?
Very true.
Or just like a human mission, if we arrived on Mars and there was semi-sentient guinea pigs that were present, right? We would have a host of dangers on Mars that we don't have on Earth that we really hadn't properly planned for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that
Yeah.
there's always this sense of omnipotence that we assign to the concept of an alien.
Yeah.
That they must be so technologically advanced that they can do no wrong because they were able to travel such a great distance. But maybe when they enter our atmosphere, it becomes a completely different story.
I mean, that's possible. And there's been a lot of speculation about that, especially if they work off gravity. Like, then, why do these spaceships crash land on Earth so often? If they're these super technological, species. Well, maybe that, if they work with gravity and they don't know exactly what Earth's gravity is, it could cause some kind of issues. That's been something I've heard of. I think one thing, Ragnar, with that though, is talking about getting to what you were talking about. I think the reason that thought is prevalent though is just because I think most people assume, or a lot of the scientists who talk about this assume, that if there were to be extraterrestrials that made it here, they would be possibly thousands of years, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of years more advanced than us. And then if you look at how fast, technology has been going for us just this last 100 years, I mean, imagine going to 1907 and giving somebody a smartphone. I mean, they probably wouldn't even begin to understand what it was capable of. I mean, more or less use it. And so I think that's what they think. That's what that technology will be like to us. It'll just be unknowable to a certain extent. And then,
yeah,
but I think your point is valid though, for sure.
But then we arrive at 1907, and there's a number of things that have been wiped out since then. Diseases and viruses and bacteria that existed then that don't exist now. Yeah. And we suddenly are dying of an infection somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Or we go back there and, we're surrounded by a pack of wolves or something. At the time, they knew what to do, and we don't know.
We don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that's my
a lot of
moment.
A lot of factors to think about, and things that we probably aren't thinking about at all. Which is what I think you're trying to say.
Yeah, I really agree.
We don't know all the factors. We can't even begin to think of all of them.
Which is why it's so interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, if we ever figure it out, it's not going to be fun anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just going to become a fact.
We'll move on to something else. Yeah, we'll just move on to something else. And so this story, I think, is this whole mixed. I mean, I have no clue what to think about this yet, but ever since they had the intelligence meeting last year and kind of came out of the closet, so to speak, with the new Project Blue Book, this UAP thing, and they're going to be more open about it, and they want to get rid of the stigma of people reporting this stuff, which sounded absolutely wonderful. I feel like, if anything, there's been a huge kind of disinformation, or I don't know if it's disinformation or just flooding the news cycle with information that's really not that relevant. And I don't know if it's hey, we're going to give you what you want, and now you'll realize that there's nothing to talk about thing. I don't know. But there's something going on. I can't quite put my finger.
Yeah.
I think.
The Wizard of Oz. Don't look at the man behind the curtain.
So I don't know, but that's the news.
Who knows?
That's the news.
Tell us about our
tonight.
guest, Frosty.
Yes. So tonight, as we said already, we have on tonight Ragnar Ericsson, a 43-year-old guy just trying like hell to get people to talk to each other again. So you're in the right place because that's what we're doing tonight. A user of common sense in a world where reason and conversation are no longer united. Ragnar Ericsson is a near-death experiencer we'll talk about tonight. We watched the video, and you can visit his YouTube channel at YouTube at Call of Odin. So make sure you go give him
Misha has already pinned
a subscribe.
It up at the top.
Yeah, we got it on there. Go subscribe there, ring those bells and likes, and you know the drill. It's the internet.
Yeah.
You know what to do, so go do it.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show.
Yay.
Thanks. No, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. I want to say my thing because my thing is cool and I love it and people seem to like it. And every now and then somebody says, stop saying that, but I'm going to keep saying it anyway. So the thing that I say on every one of my videos, and I mean it sincerely, I love you, I respect you, and if I have to, I will protect you. And that's regardless of anything about you other than whether or not you personally are an asshole. So
I can get on board with that, Ragnar.
You guys are cool.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, and you know, like we talked about before when we were getting ready to come on here. I mean, that's that. I think in some ways we kind of have the same goal here. You know, you discuss a lot of different topics on your YouTube channel, and you know, we of course are going to center our stuff around weird discussion, and we have Team Weird and all that stuff going on here. All of our lovely Team Weird members. But we kind of have the same goal. We want to get rid of the stigma of people being able to communicate, of being able to talk about things that a lot of people kind of give you the side eye if you want to talk about, and not discredit other people, just to listen to people's stories and then let people decide for themselves.
Yeah,
what they believe. Yeah,
exactly. And that's one of the things that I'm always pretty excited to borrow someone else's platform a little bit, because it gives me an opportunity to see people from a different walk of life that may think about things a little bit differently than I do. And I think the biggest true sign of a mature adult mind is the ability to look at somebody that might say something that initially kind of makes you go, oh, I don't like that. And say, well, why do you feel that way? And listen then to understand and not just to respond.
Yeah.
Right. I don't need to sell you on why I feel the way I feel. I'm going to tell you why I feel the way I feel. And then you give me your version of that back. And then hopefully we're grown-ups enough to compromise, find our space in the middle and our common ground, and come away from the conversation having learned something from one another.
Yes.
All of that seems to be things that I mean, I would like to say that perhaps we've lost, but let's be honest, did we ever have it to begin with? The ability
Rarely.
to just, it's a hot mess right now with people not wanting to communicate with each other when they don't have the same viewpoints. Crazy.
I think it comes and goes like a tide. But I definitely think the tide's on the way out right now. The tide's been going out for a while. But maybe we can get it, maybe we can get it to come back in to a certain extent. I think a lot of people really are kind of pushing for that, just for better, honest conversation. And that's one of the things about this show specifically is like people have their beliefs. We're talking about anything nowadays. People are so invested. Everyone is completely invested in the fact that they're right, like that they have the answer, that they know the truth, that and they have this truth, and I'm going to argue and make this person believe what I believe, rather than examining yourself. And this is the key for me, and believe me, there's a million things I need to work on, but if there's one piece of advice I try to give, it's look, you constantly have to examine your own beliefs and your own thoughts and ask the question, what's logical? Is there something I believe in that like it's not adding up? I have to re-examine this. I have to think about this again. And I think
what's my point of cognitive dissonance?
yes.
Right? Am I seeking to confirm my bias, or am I actually trying to learn something?
Yeah.
And that's what's important to me.
And I think that's when I've had my biggest breakthroughs in like, evolving my, getting out of ruts and stuff like that and moving on with whatever my next chapter is. It's just like, oh, I kind of thought this, but that guy made a good point. So instead of like shouting him down, let me think about that. I might not agree with you, but I'll think about that for a week or two and let it rattle around in there. And I think if we could get more of that going, we'd be in a better place. So let's start with where it started for us. I had one of our Team Weird people. Was that Keisha? Denny?
I think it was Keisha.
Yeah, they posted the video in our Discord.
Hi, Keisha.
Yeah.
I know Keisha. Keisha's a subscriber on my channel too.
Excellent.
She was just saying that she had a lovely conversation with you in the comments of your video.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she said, you guys have to watch this video and check it out. So we watched it on a stream live one day and kind of talked about it. So for those who haven't seen that yet, kind of give us a story on what happened with your experience.
Well, I was, I think 14. I might have been 15, but I think I was 14. And I'd been in Germany for, I don't know, 6-8 months. My stepdad was in the army, so I'm a brat myself. And we'd gone out to the bar one night to hang out, which is what you do in Germany. We lived in rural nowhere. So beer, pool, and the Spiel machine were the only things to do. And if you don't know what that is, that's like the slot machine thing. Hello? Can I help you? He just walks out here, and my 11-year-old just comes and makes eye contact and just holds eye contact. Anyway, so yeah, it's like a slot machine thing. So we just been playing and goofing off, and we'd had a couple of beers, and that's it. And it was just a standard cold German winter night. And after we left, and there was quite a field to walk across to get back to his house where I was spending the night that night. And walking across the field, I kind of had a moment where I realized that I wasn't walking across the field. I was standing on the surface of some ice that was now cracking underneath of my feet.
Wow.
And it was then that I realized that I was standing on top of this rather wide creek that had frozen over, and then a good, several inches of snow had created a good insulating layer on top of that. So this particular section was apparently thin enough that it didn't want to support my weight. And my immediate thought was, oh, I gotta distribute my weight, right? I gotta get down. I gotta try to spread it. And then no, I was under the water.
Wow.
So I had no time to even think about it, no time to take a deep breath, and then, take a couple of extra seconds to contemplate what was going to happen. I was just kind of under the water. And I panicked, and burned up what little oxygen I had pretty quick. And it was dark outside. And I don't know if you've ever been in a rural area at night, but it's dark. You can't see anything. Mm-hmm. Nothing, pitch black. And now I'm under the ice with snow on top of it, so it's extra pitch black, and I cannot see anything. I cannot get out, and I can kind of feel myself being pushed along by the stream. And I'm trying like hell. I'm punching at the ice. I'm doing everything I could do, and it did not take long at all before I felt myself going, my body's going to make me attempt to breathe in a second here. Yeah. And it did. And that was it. I was out.
Wow.
And it was an interesting thing. That part was horrible. That was that part was fun.
I was just going to add, is that still kind of, because I know you have kind of like a good message that comes out of this, but still looking back on that today, is that kind of like, I imagine that's kind of hard to kind of talk about and relive to a certain extent, or no?
You know, it all happened so fast, and stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
So, am I jumping in your cold ass pool? You know, when it's 50 degrees outside? No.
Yeah, no.
But do I have PTSD from it? Not really.
That's good.
You know, every now and then, you know, I saw a video on TikTok a while back where this guy intentionally put himself under the ice
Oh, yeah.
and was swimming to a spot, and then he lost track of where he was going, and then was trying to get back to the open hole. And I had a moment of, oh, I know how awful that is. Oh God,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But no, do I wake up screaming? No, I'm fine. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things happen to people, so no, it doesn't really get under my skin so much. And I think a part of that is that I didn't have a bad experience.
Mm.
You know, that process of whatever that was doesn't scare me anymore.
Mhm.
And in fact, it became a pretty uplifting thing for me because it took away one of the biggest fears that human beings have. You know,
Yeah.
I kind of know what's there, or at least I think I know what's there. Some people can be skeptics, and I get that too.
Mhm.
But had they been there, had they been able to put themselves in my, you know, metaphorical shoes for that period of time, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you didn't make that up.
Yeah.
That would have been the most creative thing that had ever happened ever." So, but yeah, so it was all black for a second. I think just my brain using the last of the oxygen, and then I've said this on, I don't know, 3 or 4 other channels, and I don't know how else to say this because everything that happened from here on was very metaphorical, and I cannot describe it literally because all of the senses that I would generally associate with me are no longer a thing, right? I don't have a sense of touch, and I don't have eyeballs, and you know, I don't have a sense of smell. I don't have any of that, but I have all of that and 1,000 other senses. And that's really difficult to describe to people. But the only metaphor that I've been able to give that make people go, "Oh, okay," and I hate to use the light reference because it's not a light, but it was as if I was sitting in a completely dark room, surrounded by nothing, empty space, and then it was like a light came on, and all of a sudden I was experiencing everything that had ever happened, that was happening now, that would ever happen, all at the same time. And it was impossible to get a grip on any of it.
Overwhelmed.
It was too much.
I know a lot of ND experiencers, not all of them, but a lot of them have that experience of experiencing all of time at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you were experiencing too. Like it's all happening at the same exact time.
Well, what's interesting is that immediately following, you know, this experience and kind of waking up from it, but I stopped seeing time the same way that I used to see time, because you know we experience time in the meat suits anyway as this just line of, you know, steady progress towards an eventual death, right?
Yeah.
And what that experience told me was that no, time is not only not linear, it's not two-dimensional, right? It's not a line, and it's not a circle, it's a ball. it's a sphere. It is all things coinciding simultaneously. It's all time and space existing in the same spot. And you know, it led me to these weird, you know, philosophical revelations as I started really picking that apart over the coming years. You know, well, in the absence of time, there is no distance, because the only distance between two things is the amount of time that it takes to get there. So if you subtract time from the equation, the distance becomes irrelevant. You can be anywhere.
Yes.
You know, And I thought it was interesting when this movie came out recently, this everything everywhere all at once
Yes.
idea.
I was just thinking that when you were talking about this.
Yeah, I might have a little bit of what you're famous for. So, but it was an experience where I was at peace in chaos. And that's difficult to help people understand. It was, I kind of intellectually do at the time. I don't know exactly what's happening right now, but when I get fully reduced from the meat suit over there, it's going to be okay. I'm going to understand it then. And I was resigned to it. It was okay. And then I wasn't scared, and I had no physical sensations of any kind whatsoever. And a lot of people will ask me, did you experience like an overwhelming sense of love? No. Were you scared? No. What were some of the things that were happening? I don't know. I don't know how to describe it to you. But
it was everything.
It was like
all at once.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's a question for you.
Go ahead. Sure.
At any point, did it seem familiar, like you had experienced that before?
No.
No?
No. It was, well, yes and no. Mostly no. But I had always kind of instinctively my entire life recognized that time was different than we attempt to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year and a half before all of this had happened, my father had passed away in a single car accident.
Oh no!
And I knew the second that it happened, even though it happened while I was asleep. I actually woke up, and I'd always just kind of recognized that there was something that there's something within our bodies that animates the body that isn't just the brain. I've always just kind of instinctively known that. And I never knew it so much as I knew it the night that I woke up at 2:15 in the morning, going, "Oh, something just happened to Dad. What what was that?" And then he didn't come home. So it was. So did it seem familiar? Kind of, but it also seemed like too much. But I also recognized that I had this sensation, this feeling like I was returning to something, that I was still me, but I was a part of something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew I was going to maintain my individuality, but also share the existence with everything else.
Yeah.
And be a part of that. And that be a part of me. And it's an overwhelming thing, but I wasn't overwhelmed at the time, which is why I'm not scared of it. Because when I think about it now, that's scary a little bit, because it was just so much, just too much. But I just knew as I was trying to, when I was feeling myself separating from the body, and I don't know how else to describe that, but I knew that I was just getting further away from the body. And then, but I just had this feeling like this is all going to make sense in a minute. I just got to wait it out. And I was kind of excited for it, to tell you the truth. And I wasn't sad about it. It was, I was now experiencing time in a completely fluxed out state, And my thought at the time was, my mom and my stepdad and my brother, they're going to be upset, but in the grand scheme of eternity, they're going to be here in a second anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and as I started kind of feeling like, I'm going to accept this, and I'm going to go with this, and I wonder what's next. I just heard this voice that said, not yet. And I woke up. And the immediate question, and I guess I should let you guys be interviewers here, but
no, that's fine.
The immediate question that I always get is, who do you think that was? And I'm like, I don't know. And I really don't know.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of people, it was Jesus. I don't think so. Was it a loved one? I don't think so. But it did feel kind of fatherly, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And so I woke up just vomiting creek water in mass amounts. And the craziest thing about this entire experience is that, according to my friend and the paramedic that he had pulled off the side of the road, who seemed to show up at exactly the right time for some reason.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then they pounded through the ice and ripped me out of there. I was under there for at least 5 minutes, and it could have been more like 10. They weren't sure because they were just trying like hell to get me out from underneath the ice. But I woke up, I was cold, and my chest hurt from, breathing in disgusting creek water.
Yeah.
So that part wasn't fun. They took me to the hospital. I was at the hospital for an hour.
Wow.
That's it.
Body temperature was back. No sign of any kind of actual damage other than, for the next couple of days, I was a little, what's the word I'm looking for here? Pneumonia. I wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel too great, but I wasn't like dying. I was just getting rid of the remainder of this fluid in my lungs. It was gross.
Yeah.
It's gross. But I was fine. Otherwise, I was fine. My body temperature went right back to normal. And then, when they pulled me out, I was dead.
Yeah. Frozen.
And that's what this paramedic said is I cannot believe you woke up. I've done this before. I've never seen anybody wake up like that.
I think this was a question we had when we watched it, that because the water was so cold,
yeah,
did they think that that's like why?
Has to be.
There wasn't any, nothing was really happening to your body because it was literally frozen.
It has to be. Yeah, that has to have something to do with it, for sure. Somebody else mentioned, doctors will tell you that, the body's not dead until it's room temperature. Right? Mm-hmm. So, or until it's warm. Because there are people that have died, that have been, completely shut off from hypothermia, that have come back, and it's happened quite a few times. I've seen lots of cases of that, actually, because I've gone looking for them.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to know, what happened to me. Mm-hmm. I don't get it. It's weird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But drowning is different. Drowning and hypothermia are very different.
Yeah.
And when you combine the two, it becomes pretty complicated. From what I've seen, what happened to me is very.
Is there an endless?
I was just getting ready to ask,
souls?
have you ever found any other person that has your same experience?
I've never met them. I've read about them.
Yeah.
I've read about them, but
there are others.
There are some. Yeah. There are some. And when I look at the near-death experience communities that have kind of given me some attention, I'm not running into anybody else who's telling me any similar stories either.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot about gunshot wounds and car accidents and heart attacks and strokes and whatever.
Yeah.
But the drowning thing is wild, and I still don't really like. I don't like cold water. I will never like cold water again. I'll drink it.
It's understandable.
No polar plunges for you.
I'll drink it. Yeah, when I see people doing this Wim Hof stuff, no, not me. But coming out of that experience, I brought some stuff back with me.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
before we get to that, I wanted to ask, was there any lapse of time where you didn't remember that experience of being on the other side, or was it just you came back and you just remembered all of it?
No, I remembered all of it.
Okay.
Real time. Now, one thing that I didn't mention is that the time that I spent on that side felt like a significantly longer period of time than it felt like in what was apparently real time.
Yeah.
significantly longer period of time. Hours.
Mm-hmm. When
Hours.
really it was maybe like less than 10 minutes.
5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
Crazy.
but no, I remember it as vividly now as I did then, immediately thereafter.
Amazing. Yeah, because some NDE experiencers don't remember it, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a
Yep.
minute, something triggers it, and then they start remembering. It's
Yep.
really interesting to hear everybody's different. You know, everybody's experiences are different. Just like the way that you went to the other side is completely individual for you. What happened to you there is completely individual also.
There's always something though. There's always like a tie. There's like a thread that runs, and it may not be the same thread, but there's always a thread you can pull from one to the other, which I think, you know, is always it's interesting because then you have like this shared experience. Like it might be different. There's different details, but when there's a sense of it kind of being this thing that's shared between different people, that experiences gives it more weight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So now you can tell us, what did you bring back with you? A suitcase full of goodies.
Well, I've always been, I almost even hesitate to say this because people look at me sideways when I mention this stuff, and it's
it won't happen here. This is
It's okay.
Yeah, this is
okay.
This is Team Weird, so you're good to go.
Yeah.
I've always been sensitive to certain things. You know, there are times that I'm walking down the street and I've, like, almost as literally as possible, got somebody in my ear saying, say this to this person, say this to this person, say this to this person. You know, and I had to practice shutting that off. And because it was like, I'm not going to bend to the will of whatever these things are every time they do this. And I've never been known as kind of an irrational person. You know, in fact, I'm a skeptic by nature because I feel like that's just the right way to go about things. What's the easiest explanation? That's generally what's actually happening, right?
Yes.
But there are certain things that you're not going to rationally explain.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things that I came back with was this weird ability to read a room, right? To read a person and understand exactly what their motivations are almost instantaneously. And, you know, and part of that is what I do for a living. I'm a sales guy. So, you know, I've talked to hundreds of thousands of people over time, and I've kind of learned the motivations of people. But I know who I'm talking to 10 seconds after I meet them, which makes me a better salesperson. But
hell yeah, it does.
But and the thing that I've wondered about is, you know, I've gotten better at it over the years. Obviously, you know, I'm almost 44 now, but everybody's always said, you know, you're a pretty charismatic guy. You come into a room, it seems like everybody's kind of drawn to you. That went up exponentially after this experience. And some people, other sensitive types, avoid me like the plague.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Like I've had a couple of people that are like, look, you seem like you're perfectly lovely, but I can't even be in the same room as you. Right? And,
did they ever say why though?
one lady told me that being around me gave her a panic attack because it felt like everything that had ever happened or ever will happen was happening all at once.
Like it's like it was still like a sheen of something on you.
Yeah, like it brought out a little layer of it, and she was picking up on it or something. But I've had quite a few things like that, and I've always been fascinated by the paranormal stuff. Truly fascinated. I've been studying that stuff since I was a little kid.
Me too.
And I don't mean studying it like I read some fiction books and thought that's a cool concept. Like I've actually, like, I thought I wanted to be a paranormal investigator when I was a kid. I live in Vegas, and I lived in Vegas when I was a kid. So, you know, I was here for the Bob Lazar, you know, George Knapp, I was a 9-10-year-old kid when all of that was in full swing, and I was attached to it like glue.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's a contributor, right? Is that I'm interested in this stuff, and maybe I assign some things to that maybe don't deserve it. But there's been so many people over the years that have just walked in and went, I don't know why I feel like I need to tell you my life story, but I'm going to share something with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because somehow I think I'm going to feel better if I do. And like, my kids can't lie. Like, they can, but they know I'm going to catch them, so they don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if they even started a little bit, I'm like, yo, whoa, no. Start over.
Yes.
Because I just know, and that's how it's been. I can't do that with everybody, but I can do it with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel if I'm anywhere near my wife, whatever her mood is, like instantly from the other room.
Yeah. Don't even have to see her.
Don't even have to see her. My daughter, my 22-year-old daughter, who is a little bit of a problem child, frankly.
We got one of those too, Ragnar. It's okay.
Oh, there you go. I bet mine's worse.
We won't name any names around here.
I bet mine's worse. She was fun, but
we might have to have a comparing notes afterwards.
We might, but I've done some things I'm not particularly. I'm a little ashamed of to keep her out of trouble. But she calls it my radar, because I used to like call her at exactly the right moment. Like, what are you doing right now?
You better stop it right now.
Whatever it is, stop. How do you always know? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So there you go.
CMC Airboss wants to know if you can read this room, our chat people.
Probably not.
Without seeing them.
No. No.
He did. He was also commenting on your guitars earlier. I wanted to mention that he was excited about them. Yeah.
I got a couple. I got a. That's some of them.
Awesome.
Mine are all to my left over here.
Yeah,
they're off screen, but they have a bunch of there as well. So
I found that my thing is always in person.
Yeah,
and it's very unexpected usually when it happens. So it's and sometimes it's auditory, and sometimes it's literally visual, and that's and I still hate it sometimes when it shows up, because it's not always positive. And
oh yeah, mm-hmm.
that's the part that a lot of people, I wish they understood about all of it. It's not always positive.
No,
and we're not really enjoying it when it's happening.
You don't want to see.
Yeah, and blood and gore would be one thing, but have you ever had that dream where just everything feels so dark that when you wake up, it's yes, I am so glad that's over. I have those experiences pretty regularly, being in people's presence, and I don't like it.
No,
I don't like that part. And usually it's because that person sucks. So I just stay away from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one thing that I found that's kind of been on our journey on Twitch here, Ragnar, is obviously, Medium Jenny Lee does her stuff on here and does readings. And we talked about this before, so I won't bore them going through all this over again, but I've still am intrigued how often people don't know if they can read people over the interwebs, just because like you see a username and that's all you know.
Like, I didn't know if I would be able to do this on Twitch.
But people but it does. Like, people are able to do medium readings and all kinds of stuff just through a username with a gamer tag. And it's been one of those things that's been a curiosity of mine ever since I've kind of seen this happen over the last couple of years. I don't know. Maybe it's something maybe that's something to do with time too. Like, there is no distance really. Like, you think this person's in, France, and like, how am I supposed to have a connection with this person? But like you said earlier, you take that time away from it, and really there is no distance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just got a thing, and Jinx, you owe me a Coke. I don't know why that sounds so important, but whoever asked that question, I think knows exactly what that means. Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
All right, so we'll watch chat here. If anyone wants to claim Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
No, I think it was the person who actually said
it was Air Boss. Okay.
So whatever that is, it sounds funny. And it feels like brotherly, or at least like tight friendly. I don't know. But
interesting.
Wow, that's weird because that doesn't happen very often. But okay.
Well, yeah, you enter team weird, my friend. So that's what happens around here.
So I have a question about this experience too. You talked about when once this was done, you felt like you kind of wanted to kind of spread the message to other people, wanted to talk about it and share your experience. Was that something that you decided you wanted to do on your own, or do you feel like there was kind of like a mission given to you to do that?
No, I don't feel like it was a mission given to me.
Okay.
My thing is I know that as a young kid, one of the biggest fears that I always had was, die. Oh, that's a scary concept. And it's something that I see my own kids struggle with. One day I'm going to die, and they get upset about it. And I found that, just explaining to people what happened and my experience with it, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it is I'm not afraid to die. Like, I'm not looking for it. I don't want to, but when that time comes, I'm fine. I'm good with it. And I'm looking forward to it to an extent, because I want to see what the rest of that was, right? I want to see what I hadn't seen yet, but I wouldn't want to, amplify things, or shorten things up at all. I like being around. And I'll tell you one thing that I try to be super cautious about when I have this conversation is, I was on one channel where, okay, thank you. I was on one channel that the video that I made with him had like 300,000 views, and there was so many comments and so many people that were really going through a hard time and contemplating not good things.
Yeah.
And it was almost like that they were on, they were looking at videos about the topic because they wanted confirmation that if they did take off, it was going to be a good experience. And, permanent solutions to temporary problems is a bad thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Not the solution.
And again, in the grand scheme of eternity, it's not going to be that long anyway. Mm-hmm. So if you're going through whatever that is, don't, go get some help. Don't try to get yourself there. It's not somewhere I have a sense, and I mean this, that getting yourself there is probably not going to make for a positive experience.
No, I don't think it's necessarily the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
There might be some other things that happen instead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like we said earlier, everybody's experience is different. So they could watch 50 ND videos where they all say they're great. And then they end up going somewhere that ain't, isn't as pleasant because they didn't deal with the things they needed to deal with when they were in the living.
Well, and we had one, we had a McDaniel in here talked about hers, and spending time in hell, her experience, because there were things that she had to deal with before, so everyone's experience has been really different.
Yeah. So I was thinking earlier when, kind of this whole time actually, because you talked about how you felt when your father passed, and that was before you had this experience. Mm-hmm. And now that you've had this experience, those kinds of things are heightened, and it's to me, it feels, and you can, we can all discuss. That's why we're discussing, because we're all part of this whole. That we're like this consciousness. It's part of the whole, but we're still part of the whole. We're able to tap into all of the other parts because we're the same. We are everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that when you start to spin, you are less connected. What is the deal? Tripping.
Doggies.
Keisha said that the doggos feel in the spirit.
Yeah, the dogs feel the spirit.
I got 3 of them, and one of them's outside losing their mind, and I think she just wants to go protect her because that's my big scary dog.
There you
That
go.
is not scary at all, but she's the protector.
My big scary dog is going. He's getting up there in age, and he's kind of going blind and kind of going deaf. So he's laid down asleep over there. He might wake up and come and knock over my green screen. That's usually what he does. But other than that, he's good to go.
Yeah. He can't hear anything anymore to bark at it. So.
Right.
Yeah, he would bark if he knew it was there, but he don't know it's there. So
poor baby. Anyway, you were saying something about spinning. What were you talking about?
No, it's just I feel like if you are, if you're in a state where you have got enough sorrow and enough chaos in your life that you are you're almost manifesting that for a very long period of time, like maybe forever.
Yeah.
By taking that action.
Yeah.
And I just that part scares me. I'm almost afraid to tell people that I had a positive experience because I don't want it to get anybody there faster.
Yeah.
You don't want to get there faster.
No. It'll all come for us.
Just wait, it's coming.
Yeah.
Have an extra cheeseburger if you have to.
So with all of that being said, what would you want the takeaway to be about sharing your experience? What is the thing you really want people to know about it?
Peace. It's we assign so much value to just this thing that we have. And you should assign a lot of value to it. You should enjoy it while you got it. It's an experience, but what's coming is it's fine. It's cool, right? And, I hear people saying that they've had really bad experiences. And the people that I'm not trying to set anybody off with this. The people that I found that had really negative experiences when they've had their experience were in a really dark place when they had that experience. And I wasn't,
You had just been drinking and playing slot machines and pool. Of course not.
Yeah.
You're just a happy kid hanging out with friends.
Yeah. I wasn't getting hammered. It was a couple beers.
No. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
I'll tell you a secret about Germany a lot of people don't know. People think that the Germans drink beer all day. They are correct. Germans will drink beer all day. But beer to Germans is not an intoxicant. It's a beverage.
Yeah.
Right? There's a big difference between the way Germans drink and the way we would drink. It's just what they do. But so I think the key takeaway that I have for just kind of sharing that experience was, well, number one, it's fun to talk about. It's interesting. It's a fun story to tell because it was wild.
Yeah.
It was different. It's the kind of story that makes people go, oh, that's kind of cool. So that part's fun.
Yeah.
But kind of more important than that is it's, well, how about don't drown? It's good awareness for that.
Okay.
That's pretty measurable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pay attention. If you're walking across a field and there's make sure it's an actual field and you're not walking on the surface of a flowing stream. but we this sensation that we have of fingers and toes and eyeballs and feet and whatever. It's fun and it's good, but it's not everything. There's so much more beyond this that I've gotten a little tiny taste of, that the rest of it's going to be great. And the only reason that I even talk about it, because again, I'm kind of a skeptic by nature, is because I think it's going to help some people kind of understand, oh, this doesn't have to be this big mystical, God experience necessarily, because I don't feel like that's what I had. I don't feel like I had a God experience. I think I just had the experience of returning to the fold, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Returning to the source or whatever. And I've had so many esoteric explanations of this from whatever lens people are viewing things from. No, it was Jesus that told you to go back. Oh, okay. Oh, it was Buddha. It was demons. It was angels. It was, okay. Everybody comes at it from their own lens. Well, when I came away from that experience, I didn't come away. I actually came away from it less religious, because it wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a religious experience for me.
Yeah.
It was an awakening experience, but I also don't attach it to any other kind of weird esoteric thing. It's just it was a fact. It was a thing that happened.
Yeah.
And I don't assign any more importance to it than I've now seen what's on the other side of that, and I'm not afraid of it anymore. That's all the attachment I have to it. That's all the importance that I put into it.
So even saying that, it didn't, like, you saw it as like not being religious. Did it lead to you being more curious about spirituality at all, like outside of religion, or was it just like this thing that happened?
Less so.
Okay.
Less so. It's an interesting thing to say, because I know it kind of flies in the face of the way that most people come out of those experiences.
All right, everyone, we are back. So let me kind of reset this up for you guys. If you've come in and you have joined since the beginning of the show, tonight we have Ragnar Ericsson, and we have been talking about his near-death experience along with some other things, and we're going to get into some more stuff here in a little bit. I did want to say thank you so much, Linguist, for the raid to start off tonight. As always, you are absolutely awesome. And we had a new follow tonight. We had OG WTF Dude, so thank you for the follow. We appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, a new follow.
Yeah, always great, always great. So
now my cat's
that's where we are.
Destroy everything.
And now
we got the dog to start barking. Now the cat's going to destroy stuff.
Yeah. My green screen's always the target. They don't like the green screen there. They try to take it down. I'm okay.
I've got one of those retractable ones. So when I get done, I just kind of push it down.
Yeah.
He's got a foldy up one. That one's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to jump the gun and move on too quick, but I was curious. For the video, we saw on YouTube, that seemed to have quite a big reaction and a lot of views. I was curious, did you do that video first before you started your YouTube, or had you already started? Like, how did all that start working out for you when you did that video?
Well, I don't know which one you saw.
Oh, let me look it up, and then I can tell you.
Did you see it on my channel, or did you see it on somebody else's channel?
It was on somebody else's channel.
All right.
Keisha,
then I know
what's the name of that YouTube?
Then I know the one that you saw me on.
Okay.
So, because that one got all the attention. But yeah, I already had a YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I had a couple hundred subscribers, and I did this. It was actually an interview, but she just edited things really well. So, and it was a great experience. She asked good questions, and at the end of the thing, I was like, she's like, yeah, it'll go up in the next month or so. And I was like, all right, cool. And I kind of forgot about it, and then one day I wake up and I'm like, holy shit, I've got like 1,300 subscribers now.
Yeah.
What? Oh, I bet that video went live. Right. And I go look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, it went live. And it was really over the course of a couple of days that it got a ton of views. And I started getting people kind of coming to my channel and looking at my channel. And it was interesting because a lot of those people's first experience with me was seeing me explain this strange esoteric experience and then go to my channel and see that I don't really talk about that stuff all that much. And, I don't even know how I read to people when I'm on my own channel, because I'm politically weird. I'm politically very strange and very odd, and because I don't fit in either party, either of the big ones at all.
We don't.
So I get a lot of I feel really passionately about a few things, and like, well, how does your near-death experience inform that? Well, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier, right? It was, the lens that people see things through. If their first experience with me is watching me talk about a near-death experience, then everything that I do after that must be informed by that.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
No, it's really not. It's really not. And, you were asking me, how it informed me spiritually. And that was when the dog kind of started going haywire, and she was out back and I was getting flustered. So I'm sorry about that. But
no, you're fine.
I don't think it made me more spiritual. I think it made me less spiritual because there was less to figure out. I think the biggest draw of spirituality is this, I have to figure it out. The more spiritual I become, the more likely I am to, become a better version of myself when I return to the source, or whatever stuff, In my case, it's, oh, okay, that all makes sense now. Cool. Get it. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And it became less of a source of anxiety for me, because I think that's what leads people to religion and spirituality to begin with, is some form of anxiety of, I got to know what happens when we get out of here. Mm-hmm. Well, now that I've seen what I'm 100% personally sure happens when I'm done with here, it's one less thing that I have to worry about. So it made me less of a spiritual person. And I don't go through the motions of, getting down on my knees and worshiping anything. I just don't. And that bothers some people. And and to those people, I say, whatever makes you happy, 100% go do that. Enjoy that. Live whatever truth you need to live, that you want to live, and I support you and I love you for it. Whatever makes you happy, you go do that. It's just, I came out of that experience far different than most people do, apparently.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. But everybody's is different. And everybody comes away with it with something different. So the fact that yours is completely different than everybody else's, there's nothing wrong with it.
It's not surprising. I think a lot of people have really different experience, and I think that it's informed by where they started.
Mm-hmm.
If I've never seen anybody convert to a religion because of their near-death experience. Right? I've heard people say, I went to hell and, so I sought out Jesus and that kind of thing. But I've talked to a lot of other people that have had similar experiences over the course of the years. And I hear a lot of the same thing from them that my experience. Personally, I wasn't really looking for, any kind of fulfilling relationship with the Heavenly Father at the time. But the people who were looking for that found it.
Yes.
And I think there's something to that.
Mhm.
You know, I was just poking around in life going, I don't know what happens, and I don't really care because I'm 14 years old.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not worried about it because the odds of that happening are pretty slim to begin with, and I don't have any health problems, so I'm not going to bother worrying about it, and I'll go do crazy stuff. Yeah, and I did some crazy stuff, and I kept doing crazy stuff. It didn't slow down the crazy stuff at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
You know, well, I already
Yeah.
died once, so. But
Well,
but I don't, and again, I don't want to take anything away from people who've had, you know, some profound, you know, higher
No.
power experience. I didn't
I don't
have
even
that
think that
experience.
you have to apologize because
No.
that's your experience. That's
Yeah.
what you experienced.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the fact that you look at it as simply as, okay, now I know what happens. Like there's a beauty to that.
I was going to say there's almost like a piece, like I see a piece
Well,
there.
that's what he said. Peace.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
well, yeah, I guess that's the word for the night in a lot of ways. But just this idea that you don't have to be in angst over it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like so much, I
Well,
feel like, and you know, I've been there before in my life where, you know, it's like you have to make sure you make this right decision. You have a decision to make, and you have to choose the right thing, and you have to join the right team, and don't join that team. You have to make sure, and as a human being, you only have so much information available to you, and you go, oh God, don't get this wrong. I have to make sure, you know, I have to make the right choice. What team am I going to be on? And so I guess you get to a point where, you know, what it sounds like to me is like, hey, I don't have to make that decision. I'm good.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to pick a team. And in
Yeah.
fact, I think that experience may be why I'm so politically strange too. Right? I don't
Yes.
feel like I need to join your church. I don't feel like I need to join your zealotry team.
Yes.
You know, and because one of the things that I've talked about, and I will not get into politics here. I know that's no, but I found that I think that the majority of people have decided that they have to be so far left or so far right at some point that they forget that most people don't fit into either category perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that the majority of people reside somewhere in the middle of that spectrum.
Yes.
And they have
Yeah.
so much more in common with people that they think they so vehemently disagree with, but they don't talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So all they get fed is what the TV tells them.
Yeah.
Whatever the media tells them that keeps you locked on, keeps you upset, keeps you screaming at your TV instead of talking to your neighbor.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
and
If we're-
that's
we're
actually
too
one
busy-
of the things, yeah, that
No.
I took out of that experience.
Well,
If we're too busy arguing with each other, then we can't go around fixing the stuff that needs to be fixed either.
yeah, and you know, like you were saying, you know, not to get political. It's not something we really talk about on here, but you know, just to kind of go with it because you said that as well. Is there just that freeing idea of not having to connect yourself to something in a religious sense? I think you get that same kind of freedom when you connect it to a political. I was someone who was very political. So to have a show where I don't talk about politics is interesting for me because Jenny knows from the time I was in high school, I was very involved in politics. And even recently, like my
Yeah, he was
minor was in political science. And like when I got out, I wanted to try to work for like political think tanks and stuff like that. And then I just had this moment, maybe, you know, as we get more into just kind of trying to understand the universe, it just got to a point where I was like, I don't agree with any of these people. I don't want to be part of any of their teams. And I don't want to, I'm tired of making excuses because I found I would have to do that. Well, this person really has good ideas. And then someone would say, well, what about this and this? And you go, well, those are really bad ideas. But what about these good things they're doing? And it's like, you're constantly having to defend horrible takes, horrible opinions, horrible legislation.
And that's one of the things that I see a lot is, and I don't want to drop any names, but yeah, this guy just did this horrible thing that I really don't like. Well, what about this guy that did that horrible thing that you really didn't like? Well, he did this thing that I do like. Well, what about that other thing that guy did that you didn't like? Right? And it becomes, you know, well, what do you mean? Why is everything what about? Can't we just call everybody on their bullshit? Would that be okay? If somebody's doing something wrong, can we just call them on it, regardless of what team
Yes.
they happen to align themselves with? If they did something wrong, call them on it. Do something about it.
We can't do that anymore, though.
No.
And I feel like that is something that's new. I'm kind of in that point now where I feel like I'm 42, so we're pretty close in age. So
yeah,
when I look back at it, I go, man, I don't think this used to happen. But then again, I was younger and maybe I just didn't pay attention as much. I'll leave it at that. I'll say I think for both religion and politics, it's much more freeing once you realize that you don't have to pick a side and be who you are and have your opinion and listen to other people's opinions and come to and have conversations about it.
And you should.
Yeah.
You should. The only thing that drives me bonkers about the religion conversation are the people that are, you're going to hell. Like, well, hold on a second now. Right?
There's no conversation there.
hold on a second. Because, I don't know how much of my channel you've actually seen, but I was almost as close to being an atheist as you could be for a long time. And then I had a personal experience with what I believe to be the All-Father himself. Mm-hmm. Thus all of this crazy stuff. And his picture tattooed on my arm and all that stuff, right? But I don't need to proselytize that stuff. And I don't know, although I attach myself to the 9 noble virtues, and that's it, right? Everything else doesn't really matter to me. The religious side of things really don't matter to me. The 9 noble virtues are important. You should look those up and actually read about them.
He's pointing at you guys.
Listeners.
Well, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you know it, but I do some rune readings and stuff like that on Twitch as well.
Do you now?
Giant of the Frost channel. And so I've always, Norse mythology, Norse religion has always been something that's been interesting to me since I was a teenager. So we do delve into that a little bit and go through some of the sagas and for sure that's something we are at least a little bit familiar with. A linguist is always worried about Hagalaz. So that's kind of a side joke we have there.
Yeah, it's always Hagalaz. Actually, Linguist has some questions.
Yes.
So I think that you had kind of answered this, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. So she wanted to know, did this experience take away fear of dying from you?
100%. Not at all afraid of dying.
Yeah.
Just not in a hurry to get there.
Yeah.
No hurry to get there.
Yeah, no hurry to get there.
Just not afraid of it happening.
And then she had a very interesting question, which I'm interested to see the answer. Hypothetical here. If you were offered to be someone's guide on the other side, would you do it?
I guess I would, but they wouldn't need one. Man, I think I said when I started talking about this, it's such a metaphorical experience. You can't describe literally, but it's it wouldn't be somebody walking you around, guiding you around different rooms to show you what's happening here.
Does she mean
I think
you being on the other side and guiding someone else who's still living?
Like guiding a living person.
Like being a spirit guide.
Maybe I could be the person who says not yet and send them back.
That'd be in a really epic voice.
Yeah.
Not yet. Young
or sing it really hard or something.
Yeah.
That's a thing I do from time to time.
CMC Airboss has a question. He wants to know what model Jackson you have in the background.
Oh yeah, guitar.
Oh, questions. it's just a cheapy Guitar Center. If Dinky. I feel like shredding some metal, it's nothing crazy.
Yeah,
it's like a $300. It's like a $300 guitar.
You might have the same. I have a Jackson Dinky over here. They're nice to play.
It's fun if I just want to shred something.
Yeah. Let's see. Linguist has another question. What do you think?
Linguist has a lot of questions,
which is great. What do you think of people who channel source or entities that share universal knowledge? Okay, so you might. Do you want to go with that more, Jenny, or do we just want to leave it there?
No, just ask the question.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you think of people who channel source or entities that share universal knowledge?
Well, define universal knowledge.
Well, that's why I was going to say we can go with some explanation, because I think we're talking about some specific thing. So,
Okay.
There's been entities that have been channeled on Medium Jenny Lee's channel.
Okay.
Ra. And
Ra,
call
the sun god, Ra?
it's
well,
sort
that's
of,
what I'm
but
saying.
it's not
Yeah.
really.
Okay.
Higher beings.
Higher level beings that
Okay.
seem to want to help us figure shit out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So what do I think of that?
Yeah, that's what she was asking. What do you
Did
think
they?
of?
Well, the only way I can answer that question is, did they help you figure shit out?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
All
that's
right.
the perfect answer.
And what did you take away from that?
It kind of the same thing of what we've been talking about all night, that there's so much more that we don't know, and there's
Right.
so many things out there that are like we're not even seeing the tiniest grain of sand of what is in the existence of everything.
Right.
And yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So what do I think about it? I think that would be a source of entertainment for whatever entity's being channeled. I
Mhm.
think that's really all it is. I don't think that there's some big cosmic thing that's happening there where they're saying, I'm going to go help all of mankind. They're going, that's going out to dinner for them. Or,
Yeah. Let's
that's
go
them,
put on a show.
that's them, throwing a quarter in the Tekken game or whatever, it's
Or the Great Pyramid.
or the Pac-Man
Bring it
game
back
in the
around. Let's bring it
corridor
back around.
Great
Yeah.
Pyramid.
Or yeah, and from what I've seen, that gets discussed a lot about people's experience here is they're also, not saying there is, but there could be almost like this Russian doll thing that's happening too, where you get to this other side and you experience this new thing and you're trying to figure that out. And, oh my God, what does this mean? Only possibly maybe just to learn that eventually you'll peel off another layer and have to figure everything out all over again. And so I think that's kind of some of the things that people are starting to channel from some of these entities is they're not anything. They've just maybe a level or two up from and trying to share a little bit of information about what you have to learn from the next cycle.
Yeah. No, I think I understand the question. It's just, what do I think about them coming to do that? I think they're bored, and I think it's a moment. I think it's a moment. Well, I read a book as a young kid, like 10, 11, that talked about the concept of a superconscious, where what makes you isn't necessarily how you presently perceive yourself. It is this other consciousness that just kind of rides along and might live in might be experiencing your life and someone else's life and a past life and a future life, basically all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
While and doing so just for a break from the stream, just to experience things in a different way.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've thought about a lot, because when I arrived on whatever this other plane of existence was, I didn't so much feel like me. I mean, how do I describe this? It was me, but it was a completely different thing. I no longer felt like the core components of my personality were present, but I still felt like I was still who I am, just not the way that I generally experienced who I am. And much wiser, much more understanding, much calmer, much more accepting of things, where I just kind of went, oh, okay. All right, this is fine. I felt like a 10,000-year-old man, but I was a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
you know, and it's that was a big takeaway for me because, you know, that old ancient spirit, whatever it was that I felt like I was at the time, wasn't afraid of shit.
Yeah.
It was okay. No, just on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That was fun. All right. You know,
Linguist wants to know if you think we live in a simulation created by a higher level consciousness. We told you she's got weird questions, right?
that's not a weird question. I think it's a great question.
No, yeah.
Well, I saw this thing and I haven't, you know, if you take a human cell, right, and you put it under a microscope of sufficient enough amplification, at some point it pixelates, which is kind of interesting when you really think
Yes.
about it, because it shouldn't pixelate.
Yeah, that would be some kind of evidence that was a digital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there comes a point where apparently the polygons that make us up are so dense that you actually have to get down to a microcellular level before it happens. But yeah, are we manifestations of some kind of other consciousness? Apparently, because
Some galactic creature's dream.
or some, you know, alien middle schoolers, you know, fishbowl. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, but when I was watching this perceptive continuity, where effectively we are drawing the world as we view it.
Mm-hmm.
And that when we stop viewing it, it actually ceases to exist.
Yeah. Does a bear shit in the woods?
That's a good question, chat.
The tree falls in the woods. Yeah.
Write that down, because that's something that we could take from this interview and we can talk with our friend Mark Hunter Brooks about too, because we had a guy, Mark Hunter Brooks, and he's been on the show. He's going to come back on, and we're talking about, you know, using science to prove the metaphysical.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one of those things too, when you talk about quantum mechanics and how,
Which
you know,
is
these
so
things
crazy.
are connecting. Yeah.
Because I'm reading his book right now, and I just read probably yesterday or even today a part where what you were just explaining about all these, like this super consciousness experiencing all these other, you know, existences at the same time was pretty much what he said. It's like this ball of consciousness that has all these little balls of consciousness around it, and it's all the same thing, but those things are going out and experiencing stuff. And it's like the higher level consciousness is really doing all this stuff at the same time. And then you just said it, and I just read it, and it's like, it's crazy. It's craziness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like the Schrodinger's cat experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the cat alive or dead? Well, it's both until you look in the box and actually find out.
Phillips observed.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Until it's observed. And that's how video games work.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
When you play a video game and you're in like a 3D, you know, world, the entire game is not existing all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's only showing
what you need.
It's showing you the parts that you need to see in order to continue the gameplay. But, you know, like if you took a video game like Fallout or, you know, Skyrim or one of these big massive open, and you tried to run everything that exists within that game all at the same time, it would take an enormous amount of computing power.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It would be almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
So there's actually a game on called EVE Online.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's
I'm
a game
familiar.
I used to play a lot. Okay. I used to play the game all the time, where they came up with this really clever way of generating stupid amounts of space. And it was a bubble. So what you would do was the server would actually generate, if you started heading in a direction in space and then you hit your warp button, it it effectively created its own coordinates within that game, which has thousands and thousands and thousands of star systems that you can actually go into. But it just generates just a bubble for you to reside within. And then as you move around from that spot, it just moves the bubble. Right? And it's a fascinating concept when you think about the idea of, well, how do I know that the street behind my house right now is there unless I go look at it?
Yeah.
Now, I can assume it's there because every time I go out there, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But is it there for sure? Well, I can look at my camera, but then I still have to observe it. And is it drawing that road for me? Is the program drawing that road for me when I go out to observe it, or when the camera observes it for me? Or is it always there?
It just appears when you go to see it. You know, like it could,
or maybe when somebody else goes to see it,
or when someone else goes, whoever, if someone is going to observe it, then it needs to render it.
Right.
Well, you know,
so is that something I thought about?
My brain hurt
a little bit.
Well, you know,
I thought about it.
Yeah.
There's been something that I've thought about, kind of going down that same line. It kind of makes me sound like a monster, but how do I know that any other human beings actually exist? Yep. How do I know that both of you that I'm talking to right now and everyone in chat isn't some kind of advanced AI that's part of a simulation to make me believe that I'm not alone? Because I think, I think, therefore I am, right? But I don't know that you think. Even though we can have a conversation like this, I still don't know for sure that you exist like I exist.
Really real, man?
Yeah.
The shortest complete sentence in the English language. I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you know? You don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't.
I've already been called a robot, so we have a lot more questions.
We do have a lot of questions.
CMC wants to know, did you feel like we here on Earth and those in other... Okay, hold on. Did you feel like we here on Earth and those in other realms are one?
No, I wasn't worried about anything on Earth anymore. That sounds absolutely so cold.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I know it does, but it wasn't.
Well, Frosty just said we're not real, so go with it.
No, I don't want to sound cold in saying that I didn't care, but I guess I didn't care. I wasn't worried about anything here anymore because it didn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm. Like the sense of peace was so strong that you didn't even worry about it.
It was so big that it was just, it was like turning my hand over and dropping a piece of sand. I didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
And I also thought, from what you said earlier too, because like you still have your loved ones and you realize they exist, but you're not worried about them. You said you weren't worried about them not being there because you knew they'd be there in like a split second.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of eternity, our lifetimes are really, really friggin' short. So
they're not really having to wait on us. We're waiting, but they're really not. Yeah.
They're not waiting.
Yeah.
So the next question that Linguist asked kind of goes hand in hand with that. Do you think you feel like you disintegrated from your ego
during the NDE?
During the NDE.
No. If I'm understanding your question correctly, I'm still very well. I became far more stoic after all of that happened, for sure. I need a whole lot less to be happy than I ever would have expected that I would have wanted when I was that age. At that age, I wanted to be the rock star and the billionaire, and the biggest fear that I had in the world was that I would die and not everybody on the planet would remember me. And after that experience, I didn't have any of that anymore. It was, I'd like to be a rock star, and sure, I'd like to have $2 million or whatever, but whatever, I don't care. Up until that point, I was convinced that I didn't need to ever get married or have kids or, you know, and now my favorite thing in the world is being a dad.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's all I could think about after that was being a dad.
Wow.
Because I wanted to be able to, yeah. So no, it's almost like two separate beings, right? That like this version of myself and that version of myself.
That's so funny that you're talking
Not
about
really
that,
the same thing.
because the next question was literally that. Do you
Mhm.
think your NDE changed your path? A 14-year-old doesn't have a grand ideas of what their career would be, but do you feel like you would have gone a totally different way if you wouldn't have had your NDE?
I probably would have been an absolute hedonist had it not been for that. I was definitely on that path. One thing that, I was it's so stupid to say this, but I was like a childhood model. I did runway shows and I did a service merchandise commercial and a Toys R Us commercial. And I did this stupid stuff when I was a kid. So I'd had people doting on me since I was a little kid, telling me, "Oh, you're so cute." And I could sing. And I've always been able to sing and really well. So to go back to the ego question, I had one in a big way. In fact, I was downright cocky for a long time. And my mom actually pulled me out of it because, somebody at a Hollywood party one night was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so adorable." And I was like, "I know." And she went, "That's enough. That's enough. We're done. No more. That's enough, son. I don't like your attitude anymore."
Yeah. Smart mama.
But yeah, a completely different path than that, because I was convinced up until that point, 100,000% convinced, that I was never going to get married. I was never going to have kids, that it wasn't important to me. And then all of a sudden it was, well, maybe kids don't sound so bad. And by the time I was like 18 years old, I had baby fever. Like I want to be a dad, and I want to be a man. I want to be a good man, and I want to take care of my family, and I want to do all of these oddly traditionally masculine things that I think my experience kind of led me back to. Was,
Yeah.
hey, here's what your biological imperative is. You should probably go do that. So
Yeah.
I think it reinforced some of my biological tendencies while making me a little calmer as it refers to everything else.
Bree has another question here, which is, you talked about the paranormal before. Have you gone ghost hunting? And if so, where have you gone?
Oh, yeah. Well, my friend Mike in Germany, that lived not far from where this thing happened, the little house that he lived in was straight up haunted with an entity that he claimed was his girlfriend's grandmother, and she claimed was his girlfriend's grandmother. And I 100% guarantee you that wasn't her grandmother.
Yikes.
It was kind of scary, and it liked to creep you out, and very, the word poltergeist is a German word that means noisy ghost.
Yeah.
Which is even more terrifying when you think about the term noisy ghost. Well, they had a straight up poltergeist that lived in this house.
Wow.
That moved stuff, and physically manipulated things, and you could see this thing. You couldn't just feel it, you could see it.
Wow.
And yes, so people that have known me over the years have been like, "Hey, I heard about this thing." So yes, I've gone to many environments where there's supposed to be some kind of a manifestation, and 99 times out of 100, there's some other explanation for what people are experiencing there.
Yeah.
And good ones. But there are some things that I've gone, some places that I've gone to, some places that I've seen where I'm like, "Ooh, not cool."
Yeah.
Not cool. And there are some places that I have been where really terrible things have happened that I can't even go in.
Yeah.
You know, like when we went to Auschwitz,
Oh,
and
I can imagine.
we were about a half a mile away from this place, and I was like, "Stop the car. We're going somewhere else. I can't
Yeah.
be here. I
don't know
cannot
if
be
I could
here."
do that too. I've thought about that a lot. Like, could I? I don't know if I could.
And the weird thing, I didn't even know how far away we were, but apparently we were about a half mile away. Where I was like, "Stop the car," you know. And my mom and my stepdad were like, "Well, we're already here," and I'm like, "Stop the! You could drop me off here and come back and get me later. I'm done. Let me out." I was losing it. So, yeah, have I seen some weirdness? Yes. Can I tell you about it? Yes. But I think we're already pretty far into this thing. We can do that another time.
Well, I was just getting ready to say, yeah, like maybe you can come back and tell us about some of those experiences. That'd be cool.
And I'm guessing I guess you can't call them UFOs anymore.
Oh yeah, what do they call them?
They're UAPs.
UAPs.
Yeah.
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
You know, right? There's one thing about it. I think it's kind of ridiculous the way language changes sometimes, but there's one.
Oh, I just heard everything that you didn't say. Well done, sir. Well done, sir.
I think that this change, there's one positive to it for me, and that's that we have UAPs, but that also creates now USPs, which have often been left out of the story, which is the ones that go into water. And so it's given them a way to be able to differentiate them. That's the only benefit of it. But I do think it's kind of like I said, I don't know. I'm not saying that I know the answer to anything with this, but there is something with all this changing to the UFO to the UAP to this this semi-disclosure that's come out and the military videos they've released and all of this Chinese spy balloons and motherships in our solar system. There's something going on here, and I can't put my finger on it. But there's something.
Let me tell you what I'll tell you what I've been saying for decades now, because I think it's valid. And when I say this, you're going to be like, oh. I think that Area 51. I know that Area 51 exists because I live in this state. Right? I've driven through it. I've seen the signs, right? Authorized to use deadly force if you go beyond this point. That is the worst kept secret in American secret intelligence history, right? They claimed it didn't exist forever. Oh, okay, It exists, but you just can't come here. I don't think there's anything at Area 51.
I don't think there's anything there now. For sure.
I think that
I don't know if there ever was.
I think that is the magician's assistant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look over here. I'm wearing sparkly clothes and I have a nice body. Well, there's really something going on.
Yeah.
In New Mexico or, one of the rural areas of Colorado or something, because this place has gotten too much attention. Yeah. And it's almost like they taunt people. Like if you go onto Google Earth and you start, moving around in there, they've got all kinds of like weird drawings in the dirt and sculptures and things that you can literally zoom down on. There's like an elementary school there with swings and stuff, right? And it's almost like they do that on purpose so that people spend all of their time paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Where the real thing is perfectly hidden somewhere.
Yeah. Which I feel like that's what Frosty's talking about here. Like, look at these Chinese spy balloons.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, really,
I'm going are we really worried about spy balloons? And
they don't want us to look at.
and then there, there's some like they're intentionally trying to put us off the trail. If there is a trail, like I don't know what their game is, but there's a game afoot. so to speak.
Well, Jesse Marcel, actually, you know who Jesse Marcel is?
No.
I don't.
He was the, I think, Navy officer who was responsible for initially telling the story of Roswell the way that he said it happened. And then he was also the person that was responsible for undoing his own story and saying, actually, this is what actually happened.
Gotcha.
Right? It was actually a weather balloon that had dummies on it and, you know, whatever, right? But Jesse Marcel, shortly before his death, cut a deathbed confession, said, all right, I'm going to tell you everything. Right? I'm going to share it all with you because if they kill me now, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm out of here.
And it's an interesting, you should look it up. You should read about it because interesting story, because initially the whole Roswell incident was reported as a downed UFO.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that was not retracted for days.
Yeah, you can
And then
actually buy like copies. You know, they're new versions, but you can buy copies of the headline and
UFO found in Roswell, New Mexico farmhouse or farm field or whatever, right? Well, then they came out with the story that it was a weather balloon that had dummies on it, and that's why there were people that we saw there. But it didn't wipe out the fact that Jesse Marcel's saying we've got this like indestructible metal that if you cut it, it just folds back together like mercury.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was the impact that broke this thing. It wasn't that this thing can't heal itself, because it can. You know, and they were carting bodies off that now are, you know, weather balloon dummies.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you send a dummy up in a weather balloon? One of them, much less four of them, right?
Because they think we're dummies. That's why we'll just believe it.
Well, I think what they were afraid of is that everybody would freak out. Like you confirm that there are religious implications to that.
That's for sure. There was a study, and I used to know the name of the institute, and this was in the 90s. This is something that Art Bell used to talk about all the time. But I could look that up and I can put it in Discord later. But there was a study done that said, look, if the government were to come out with disclosure and say, yes, there are extraterrestrial beings and they have visited Earth, that the world would implode from humans just not being able to accept that information. Because it has religious implications, it has political implications, it has all kinds of humanitarian, you know, because you want to think everyone's going to go kumbaya. Hey, we're all one group of people. We have intelligence throughout the galaxy or wherever, but that's probably not, at least at that point in time in the 90s, the way humans would have reacted. And I don't know how much that's changed or if it's changed at all.
No, human beings are not smart. Not by nature. We're not smart.
Especially in groups.
We're very emotional, and we're very prone to do it. Like you said, mob mentality. We're very prone to attach ourselves to stupid moments and throw ourselves out of control. If all of us individually could take a moment to intellectually understand those things, we'd probably be all right. But
Which comes right back to the beginning of the conversation about people needing to listen to each other and have conversations.
Well, but if we're outside together, let's say we're all hanging out on the Las Vegas Strip one night, right?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
He twisted his arm.
And the UFO comes flying over the Strip. Whether you are initially afraid of it or not, if you've got 15 or 20 people around you that are terrified and they start running and freaking out, well, you're going to have to respond differently, right? And it's probably going to inspire in you some fear. And if you're older and a little bit more, you know, emotionally under control, maybe you won't, but maybe now you have to corral your kid who's freaked out. Yeah. Right? These things happen, and they happen quickly.
Oh, yeah.
They happen so fast. And I think that the point of, you know, we don't want to disclose this and we don't want everybody to know about this because they'll freak out. I think there's a lot of truth to it. You know, there's been some indication that the Vatican has actually got some information on precisely this subject. They cannot and will not release, and they keep under wraps, specifically because of the religious implications of it, and that it would utterly destroy the Christian church. Forget the Catholic Church, the Christian Church, and under all of them, all 23,000 denominations. That's a real number, by the way.
Yeah, it's very interesting implications.
Yeah.
We don't deal with change very well. So
No.
a big revelation like that would definitely have some disastrous effects. I still feel like, hopefully we're getting there. But let's go ahead and say we're reaching the top of the hour. So we'll go ahead and thank everyone for coming out tonight. Thank everyone in chat, everyone who came by and asked those wonderful questions. Thank you again for the raid linguist. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. And thank you, Ragnar Ericsson, for coming on here. And
No, thanks for having me.
yeah, it was absolutely great. And hopefully, we can talk about some spooky stuff and some alien stuff some more next time for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we'll do. If you want to hang on, we'll talk to you a little bit as soon as we get off of here. Ragnar, we hang out for just a minute. And we'll let everyone else here go. So what do we have coming up? We have tomorrow night is Friday night. And we are looking forward to it because after our long day today, we have a little bit of an easier day tomorrow.
Yes, thank the Lord.
And I think medium Jenny Lee has some experiences from our trip that she might want to talk about tomorrow. I saw your time on Discord when our
talk about my weird things that happened to me in the Egyptian part of the art museum. Yeah,
so we had some cool stuff happen there, which we kind of were talking about tonight. Yes. So we have the Friday night stream, and then
our next witching hours is Vicky coming back, and she's going to be talking about spiritualism and her trip to Lilydale.
Spiritualism and her trip to Lilydale, which I don't know a whole lot about. So that's going to be an interesting, informative night for me, especially. All right, everyone. Well, we'll go ahead and say good night. So everyone, take care, and we will see you all.
Bye, guys. See most of you tomorrow.
Next time.